A stranger stepped out of the storm and into the quiet cafe, and in that single breath before anyone spoke, the past began to unravel. Fate often arrives softly, but sometimes it walks straight through the front door. Rain streaked the windows of the modest seaside cafe, the steady tapping a rhythm that filled the dimly lit space. Inside, warmth lingered, quiet voices, clinking cups, the soft hiss of the espresso machine. Behind the counter, Mara moved with a weary grace that came from years of keeping herself together. Strands of her light hair escaped a loose ponytail, brushing the cheeks of a face that carried more fatigue than her 26 years should. Near the window, her 4-year-old daughter Lily sat humming to herself, curls bouncing as she worked on a sunflower drawn in a storm. Every few moments, her curious blue eyes drifted toward her mother. The door opened again, releasing a gust of cold air and a man in a tailored gray suit. He brushed rain from his shoulders, standing with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to airports and boardrooms. Adrian Cole, 28, CEO of one of the nation's fastest-rising tech dynasties, had not intended to stop. A sudden downpour had forced him inside. He scanned for an empty table, unaware of the fate he had just stepped into. His gaze grazed Mara's for beryllium, heartbeat too quick to recognize her, and she offered a polite nod before returning to her work. Lily stopped coloring, her eyes fixed on the man near the door. Something unspoken stirred in her expression. She slid from her chair, clutching the crayon in one hand, and approached him with quiet determination. Adrian sat near the window, scrolling through messages. He didn't notice her until a small voice broke through his focus. "Are you my daddy?" His head snapped up. A little girl stared at him with earnest, searching eyes. Across the room, Mara froze. The tray slipped from her hands and hit the floor, the crash silencing the cafe. Coffee spread across the boards as cups rolled away. Lily spoke again, louder this time, sealing the moment that shattered everything Mara had held together. "You look like the man in Mommy's picture." For a second, no one breathed. Recognition hit Adrian only after confusion worked its way across his face. He looked from the child to the woman he had once sworn never to leave. Mara swayed where she stood, the world dissolving before she could steady herself. And then, without warning, memory dragged her back to a life she thought she buried. 5 years earlier, sunlight jeweled the university lawn. Students lounged under old windows where spring warmed the grass. Mara sat cross-legged with a notebook, scribbling poetry in the margins of a textbook, her hair glowing in the sun. A familiar shadow fell across her page before. Adrian lowered himself beside her with a playful smirk. She teased him about sleeping in economics class. He answered with laughter and a white lily pulled from his bag, given with words that made her believe in things she'd never trusted before. They built their own world, midnight noodles, stolen library hours, notes tucked in textbooks, and slow walks beneath the courtyard lights. He never treated her like a girl from nowhere, as so many others had. With him, she felt seen, truly seen, but that fragile world cracked the moment his father entered it. Victor Cole didn't argue or criticize. A single cold glance told Mara exactly what he thought: she was an anchor on his son's future. Soon after, he arranged an opportunity too prestigious to refuse, leading the company's European expansion. It was the path Adrian had been raised for. Declining would ignite a war he wasn't ready to fight. A week before graduation, he met Mara beneath their usual tree. There was no smile that day. He told her he was leaving for London in 4 days. She asked about their plans. His silence was her answer. He handed her a letter because he couldn't speak truth while looking at her. He kissed her forehead once softly, then walked away. She stayed beneath that tree for hours, the letter unopened. 2 weeks later, she learned she was pregnant. Panic hollowed her. She wrote to Adrian again and again, emails, messages, none returned. She went to his family estate. They were gone. She contacted the company. No answers. Adrian Cole had vanished. Alone in her apartment, she whispered to the child growing inside her that she would protect them both, whatever the cost. She dropped out of college quietly, moved to a small coastal town, and rebuilt from nothing. When her daughter was born, she named her Lily, a small tribute to a love she once believed in, years past. Mara created a life of routines, pancakes, stories, humble joys. Lily asked questions, especially the hardest one, who her father was. Mara answered gently, always leaving out the heartbreak. Life softened, but never healed the wound. In the present, as the cafe returned to motion, Mara forced herself to move. She placed a glass of water on Adrian's table, hands trembling. Their fingers brushed. He whispered for her to wait. Before she could answer, Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Mommy has a picture of you. She looks at it every night." Adrian's breath faltered. When he finally asked Mara if it was truly her, the years fell away. She whispered yes. In the silence that followed, she knelt beside Lily and told her the truth she had carried alone. "This is him, Lily. He's your father." Adrian staggered under the weight of it. His daughter, her eyes, her smile sat only inches away. And he had missed her first moments. Her first words, her entire beginning. That night, after the cafe closed, Mara and Adrian faced each other in the quiet kitchen. The truth spilled out: the blocked messages, the manipulated distance, the years lost because Victor Cole had severed any path between them. Adrian's voice broke as he told her he never knew. Mara admitted she had believed he chose to leave when Lily fell asleep on the bench, curled into Adrian's lap as though she had known him forever. Something shifted in Mara, a door barely, cautiously opening. Adrian didn't leave town. He stayed. Every morning he returned to the cafe, helping quietly, carefully, rebuilding trust with patience instead of demands. He learned the regulars' orders, walked Lily home from school, and became a steady presence in ways that reminded Mara of the man he once was. But hope often arrives just before another storm. One afternoon, Lily grew feverish, too quiet, too warm. Panic clutched Mara before she could think. Adrian lifted the child into his arms and ran into the storm toward the hospital. Clothes soaked, determination fierce. Hours later, he sat beside Lily's bed, holding her small hand, whispering promises he should have made long ago. And for the first time in years, Mara let herself believe he meant them. Morning broke over the hospital with a pale, washed-out light, softening the shadows that clung to the hallways. Lily stirred beneath her blankets, her fever reduced but not gone, her breaths steadier than the night before. Adrian remained at her side, head bowed, fingers still wrapped around her much smaller hand. He had not slept. The weight of years lost pressed heavily on him. Mara watched from the doorway, hands drawn tightly against her chest. The storm the night before had blurred her certainty, leaving only the raw truth of what she saw now. A man who looked at their daughter as if she were the first and last miracle of his life. She wondered if she dared trust that image after everything. When Lily woke fully, her gaze flickered between them. She whispered for Mara first, then looked at Adrian, studying him with a child's intuitive wisdom. He reached out carefully, waiting. Lily slid her hand into his without hesitation, and the movement carved hope into the room. Later that day, the doctor entered with the final test results. Exhaustion creased his voice as he explained that Lily's condition had a name: an autoimmune disorder that demanded monitoring, medication, and moments of vigilance. It was manageable, but unpredictable. The words struck Mara like a cold wave. She had fought through years alone, but this illness reshaped every fear she had kept hidden. Adrian stood rigid beside her until the doctor left. When the door closed, he turned to Mara with an expression that burned with steady resolve. He told her he wasn't going anywhere, not again, not ever. This time he vowed, her burdens would not be hers alone. Over the following weeks, their lives wove together with new routines. Adrian rented a small house only a few streets away from the cafe. He rearranged business commitments, trading corporate headquarters for remote work and frequent train rides. Board members questioned him. Investors pressed him. He ignored all of it. Mara tried to keep her distance at first, but Adrian's presence wove into every corner of their days. He arrived early to walk Lily to school, sometimes carrying her on his shoulders while she recited facts about clouds and seashells. He learned the cafe's rhythms, stepping behind the counter to help when the line stretched past the door. He studied Lily's medication schedule with careful precision, setting alarms on his phone, writing notes, adjusting his own habits around hers. Each day carved away a portion of the wall Mara had built around her heart, but the past has a way of returning, especially when pride is threatened. Victor Cole arrived without warning. His silver car cut through the quiet coastal street like an intrusion. He entered the cafe with a presence that shifted the air. Sharp suit, cold eyes, a man who expected the world to move aside. Adrian froze when he saw him. Mara stood still behind the counter, a plate in her hands, breath shallow. Victor surveyed the cafe, his attention settling on Lily, coloring at a corner table. A small, uneasy frown crossed his face before he turned to Adrian. He spoke of responsibilities, of reputation, of the empire Adrian was jeopardizing. He dismissed Mara with a glance that held the same silent judgment she remembered from years ago. Adrian did not waver. He told his father that he would not abandon his daughter or the woman he had once loved. He revealed the truth, the manipulation, the lost letters, the years stolen from them because Victor had severed every thread of connection. The cafe fell silent at the revelation. Victor's expression barely shifted, but the tension in his jaw betrayed him. He denied nothing. In his world, love was an obstacle. Business was the only language. When he reached for Lily's picture, making a comment about future bloodlines and obligations, Mara snapped. She stepped between them with a fierceness that surprised even herself, making it clear that no one, especially Victor, would dictate her daughter's future or reduce her to a pawn. Adrian stood beside her, a united front. Victor left, but not before a final warning. Adrian was throwing away everything the family had built. The door closed behind him, leaving a silence that hummed with aftershocks. In the days that followed, uncertainty loomed. Rumors spread within the company. Adrian was expected to return, to restore order, to assume the duties he had been groomed for. Pressure mounted from every direction. Yet each time he looked at Lily as she slept or at Mara as she worked, he knew his choice had already been made. One quiet evening, after the cafe had closed, Mara found Adrian on the beach. Tide foam curled around his shoes as he stared out at the shifting horizon. She approached, the breeze lifting her hair, and stood beside him without speaking. He confessed the fear that gnawed at him, that he might fail them, that he might repeat the mistakes forced upon him, that he might not know how to be the father Lily needed. Mara listened, her posture softening. She told him that parenthood had never been about perfection. It had been about presence, patience, trying again, even after failure. She admitted she was afraid, too, of trusting him, of letting him in again, of believing in a future that once shattered so painfully. As the sky deepened into twilight, Adrian turned to her. He didn't beg or rush. Instead, he asked her for time, not to win her back, but to build something real, something stable, something Lily could depend on. Mara looked at him for a long moment, seeing not the boy she had once loved, but the man standing before her now. She nodded. Over the next months, they grew slowly into the shape of a family. Not the idealized picture they once imagined, but something sturdier, pieced together with honesty, forgiveness, and small everyday choices that mattered more than promises. Lily flourished under the shared warmth of them both. her laughter carrying through the cafe like sunlight. One evening near the end of summer, Adrian repaired the squeaky door to the cafe. When he finished, he stepped inside to find Mara wiping down the last table. Their eyes met with a quiet familiarity that had grown gradually, carefully, into something deeper. Mara whispered her thanks, her voice low. Adrian brushed a paint fleck from her cheek. They lingered in that space, breath against breath. The connection that had once been broken felt whole again. Outside, Lily ran past the window chasing a paper pinwheel, her laughter rising through the open door. The sound pulled them both toward the future waiting for them, imperfect, uncertain, but shared. The wind shifted through the cafe, carrying with it the feeling that, after years of separation and pain, something lost had finally found its way home.